So you're not sure you want to spend 3 hours in the theater watching Endgame. Well, don't worry. I am about to give you the entire movie synopsis. So, it's 3 hours. This is going to be kind of a long thing, so let's jump right in. So we start off with Hawkeye, and he's with his family, and they're having a picnic, and he's teaching his little daughter how to shoot an arrow. And then his family gets dusted, and he gets all freaked out. Oh no! So it kind of wants you to remember exactly where Infinity War ended, and give you that whole downer feeling again. So, cut to Iron Man and Nebula in the ship. They're trying to get back to Earth, but it looks like the ship is out of gas and is stranded and is about to run out of oxygen. Tony records a message for Pepper, who's seen it in the trailers, and it's kind of sad and depressing, and he's dying. He's almost out of oxygen. Nebula picks up Tony off the floor and puts him in the captain's chair. He's ready for the end, and all of a sudden this big light appears, and he opens his eyes, and lo and behold, it's Captain Marvel to the rescue. She's found him. She takes the whole ship back to Earth, and they go to Avengers headquarters. When they get to Avengers headquarters after a while, they go in there. Tony's hooked up to some IVs. He's all pissed off at Captain America, saying, "This is your fault. I should have been able to put my armor around the world, and we fell together just like, you said we would, so I hope you're happy." And then he's like, "Hey guys, I'm going home." So now Captain Marvel's all like, "Well, let's go stop Thanos. I'm going to go with being myself," which everybody was afraid she was going to do. But then the other Avengers say, "Hey, we do stuff as a team." And they're like, "Oh," she's like, "Okay, fine." They got to find Thanos. So Bruce notices a power surge that was similar to the power surge where everyone was disintegrated, had the same power signature from their planet. But they didn't really need, because Nebula, standing right there, said, "Oh, you don't have to do that. I'll tell you where he is." So they all get in the ship and they fly to see Thanos. And at this point, pretty much how we saw him at the end of Infinity War, he's happy. He's wearing just regular peasant-like clothes. His battle armor is on a scarecrow. And they basically just pile on in there, don't give him a chance to do anything. And Captain Marvel grabs him, chokes him out, and everybody's coming around because he's wearing the glove, but there's no stones on them. And they're like, "Where are the Infinity Stones?" And Thanos says, "Well, a couple days ago I destroyed them. I used the stones to destroy the stones, so that's kind of a bummer for everybody." And someone asked, "Why shouldn't we just kill you?" And Thanos is like, "I'm inevitable." And Thor just chops his head off. Cut to 5 years later. Cap is counseling survivors, dealing with the people they lost. Black Widow is running point with the remaining heroes to try to maintain order around the world as best she can. In a little dingy garage, a rat runs across a control panel and activates the quantum machine that where Ant-Man has been trapped the last 5 years, and it opens up the portal and he pops out, and he walks around trying to figure out what's going on, and realizes he's been gone for like 5 hours, but in the real world it's been like 5 years. So with his knowledge of the quantum realm, he decides to go to the Avengers headquarters and let them know that there might be a way that they could fix things. So he tells Captain America and Black Widow about it, and they get all excited, but there's a quantum formula they can't figure out, and they'll need somebody who could, figure stuff like that out. So they try to go to Tony Stark first, and it's 5 years later. Tony Stark's married to Pepper now, and he has a little daughter named Morgan, which he said he was going to have kind of in the first movie in Infinity War. And again, he's like, he thinks about it for a second, and decides, he doesn't want to do anything that could possibly upset his current timeline with being happy and married to Pepper and having a daughter. So he's like, "He does, I'm going home." So the Avengers go and they try Hulk. Now, about this time, Bruce Banner has been experimenting on himself, and he is now Smart Hulk, which was a thing in the comics in the 90s where you had the Hulk's body and Bruce's mind, so it was kind of the best of both worlds, which is kind of awesome. A lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was cool. So Hulk says, okay, he'll try it, and he goes and he tries to do some equations and such. And he basically tells all the Avengers that everything we knew about time travel is wrong. Like the Back to the Future movie is wrong. All the Terminator movies wrong. It's like you can do anything in the past and it won't affect your future. Great Scott! I don't know exactly. The temporal mechanics of the whole thing was kind of anyway. So they do a couple experiments with Ant-Man, and it's kind of hilarious because the Ant-Man comes back old, he comes back as a baby, he comes back as, other things. So cut to Tony Stark, and he's wandering around his house, and he's thinking about it, and he sees a picture of Spider-Man, and I think that's the moment where he decides he's going to help because he thinks he owes it to Spider-Man to try to help him get him back. And he's playing around with the equations and without even trying, really, he comes up with the answer, and he's like, well, shit. So, he runs off to Avengers headquarters, and he helps them, and they come up with these armbands, which are like temporal GPSs, and they will help you go back in time. So, all the Avengers are like, great, but they gotta go and get the rest of the Avengers. So they track down Hawkeye, who's at this point has become a vigilante for 5 years, hunting down mob bosses and killing them. And he and Black Widow have this moment where they can reconcile, and he agrees to come back and help. Then they have to go get Thor, and at this point, Thor is the ruler of what's left of the Asgardians. Probably in Norway, I think, because that's where in Ragnarok Odin was like, yeah, this could be Asgard. But he's become a recluse. He's locked himself away for 5 years. He's gotten fat. He does nothing but drink, and I think really it was kind of disappointing what they did to his character. But he eventually, after some convincing that Rocket says there's beer on the ship, decides he's going to go help. So now they're all ready to go. And they all go back to Avengers HQ, and they get in their cool little quantum suits. So the plan is to go back in time and collect the Infinity Stones before Thanos has a chance to get them, and then snap half the population of the galaxy out of existence. They break up into teams and go after them. Ant-Man, Iron Man, Captain America go after the Mind and Space Stone. The Hulk goes after the Time Stone. War Machine and Nebula go after the Power Gem. Thor and Rocket are set to get the Reality Stone. And Hawkeye and Black Widow are after the Soul Gem. So basically, they get together, they go back into the past during the quantum realm, but no matter how much time they spend in the past, whenever they come back, it will be only like 5 minutes has passed. So from here, the film bounces back and forth between the teams, but I'll kind of streamline it so it makes a little more sense. First off, War Machine and Nebula go to the planet that we see Star-Lord on at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy to get the Power Gem. They knock out Star-Lord and get the Power Gem, and Nebula gives it to War Machine. War Machine blasts back to the future. But before Nebula gets a chance to, she gets knocked out. Now, during all this time, once Nebula went to the past, her past self kind of was picking up signals from her. And it was like she was getting feedback, and the past Nebula actually played memory fragments from the Avengers' plan to go back in time and get the stones, and Thanos saw that, so he realized that something was going on and that he had won in the future, but they were trying to stop his victory. So he makes plans to kidnap the future Nebula, accesses her complete memory files, and realizes that the Avengers are trying to gather the stones. Well, he sends past Nebula into the future as a spy of sorts, and decides he's just going to wait because the Avengers are actually doing his job for him. But anyway, more on that later. So the next thing we got is Hulk is in New York, and he's trying to get the time stone. So he goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum and asks for Doctor Strange, but he meets the Ancient One instead. The Ancient One tells him he's about 5 years too early for Doctor Strange, but doesn't matter to the Hulk because the Ancient One currently has the time stone, and he says, well, I've come for that. And she says, no way. And he said, well, I'm not asking you. At which point, he tries to take it from her, and she knocks him out of his body to where it's only his astral form. So she starts to have a conversation with Banner as the Hulk's body is like unconscious on the ground. And Bruce tells her that he needs the time stone to stop Thanos, just like Doctor Strange gave the time stone to Thanos, that she needed to give it to him, and it kind of put her back, and she's like, Doctor Strange willingly gave the time stone up? And he said, yes. And so, she said, well, he was the best of us, so he must have known what he was doing, so maybe I was wrong. So she gave the time stone to Bruce with the explicit promise that he would return the time stone to her. And he promised he would, and boom, he had that one. Then we'll fast forward to Hawkeye and Black Widow. They're marching up that hill to try to get the Soul Stone. Turns out they meet the Red Skull. Red Skull talks to him, tells them exactly what we already knew, that it's a soul for a soul, and they just have to decide which one will sacrifice the other, or who will be sacrificed. In the end, Black Widow wins, and she, sacrifices herself, and Hawkeye wakes up with the Soul Stone. It's kind of sad. That was a very sad part. Next, we have Thor and Rocket. They're running around Asgard during the time of Thor: The Dark World, where what's her name? Natalie Portman, Jane Foster, has the reality gem stuck inside of her. And so Thor meets his mom. There's reconciling there. And he steals past Thor's hammer because, Hela broke it, so he stole his hammer back from the past. Rocket gets the ether out of Jane, and they go back to the future. Great Scott! Then we have Captain America trying to get the scepter and the Tesseract. Cap gets the scepter. He gets it from the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents by claiming that by saying Hail Hydra, claiming he's a Hydra agent because he gets it from the people we know in Captain America Winter Soldier turn out to be Hydra agents, so that was pretty clever. And Tony is really close to getting the Tesseract when he gets knocked out by the Hulk coming down the stairs, and Loki grabs up the Tesseract and disappears with it. So now they lost the Tesseract. So Captain America and Iron Man have to figure out, well, we gotta get it again. So they decide to go even further back into the 70s and grab it from there, in which case Tony meets his dad. They have a heartwarming little conversation. They grab the Tesseract from there, and then they all come back to the future. Once the Avengers come back to the present, Tony creates a gauntlet to house the Infinity Stones, and while he's doing that and testing it, Spy Nebula starts messing around with the quantum machine and opens up a portal so that Thanos' ship from the past could come in and his armies. So once the gauntlet gets finished, the Hulk puts it on and he does a snap to bring everybody who was snapped out of existence in the first place back. But there's really no time to check out to see if it works, because about that time, Thanos opens fire on Avengers headquarters, totally obliterating it. Lots of crashes and booms and explosions. Boom, bang. And Hulk and Rocket get trapped under some rubble. Hawkeye gets trapped underground, but he has the gauntlet, and he's running through the tunnels to try to get it up. Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor get out of the rubble, and they see Thanos land, and he goes out. He tells Nebula to bring him the gauntlet, and his armies are going out to find it, and he's just sitting there. Well, Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America said, we're not going to put up with that. So they go and they try to attack him, and wackiness ensues. They do a pretty good fight, a lot of good scenes, energy, explosions. Actually, and this is the part where Captain America is able to lift Thor's hammer and use it against Thanos, and he basically kicks ass. It was great. He just starts hammering away on Thanos and, hitting him. And Thanos eventually gets the upper hand. He knocks all three of them back. So basically, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America are now defeated again. And Thanos tells them, you're all ungrateful. I see now my mistake was thinking that if I I killed half of you, the other half would be grateful, but you're not. You just can't let go of the past and try to stop me, so I'm going to just destroy everything, everyone, and start over from scratch. Well, this ticks Captain America off, so he stands up, tightens the shield around his forearm, and, goes towards the last stand against Thanos himself. And as he's approaching Thanos, Falcon comes across the comms on his earpiece, and he's like, Cap, on your left. And then at that point, you see this Doctor Strange portal open. He's the one, the gold portals that, circular portals that open. And then the Black Panther and his honor guard come out, and he looks at Cap and says, we're here. And then hundreds of other portals pop open, and then everybody who got dusted come flying out. And so now it's this huge battle, between all the good guys, the army of Wakanda, and all of Thanos's monster creatures and his order, his Black Order. They're alive again, or still, they haven't been killed. So it's this big, huge battle going, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight. And then all of a sudden, all of the characters who got dusted come back. They make their appearances, and they have like one-liners and do cool things. So it's really good to see everybody back again. And at one point, Spider-Man finds Tony, and he explains everything. Doctor Strange gathered them up, and now they're here to fight again. During this big battle, President Nebula is on Thanos' ship, and she convinces past Gamora that Thanos is evil and has to be stopped. And Gamora frees Nebula. They escape the ship, but then they find past Nebula, and present Nebula shoots past Nebula, killing her, and the two Femmes go and engage in the battle. So again, I don't know how the temporal mechanics of this works. During the battle, Star-Lord sees Gamora, which is kind of funny, and he kind of goes over to her and says, Gamora, you're alive! And unfortunately, it's Gamora from the past, and she doesn't know who he is, and he tries to, grab onto her, and she, knocks him down and says, don't touch me! Ah! And runs off, and I'm sure he's trying to figure out what in the world happened there, but it was a really funny scene. Thanos' ship stops firing on the surface, starts firing into space. Captain Marvel comes. She obliterates Thanos' ship with a thought. One little hit, and that was it. Then she comes down. She starts to fight Thanos, and all the women gather around her, which I guess is okay. I mean, it shows all the females, but I didn't particularly care for it. Anyway, she's fighting Thanos. He's hitting her, and she's not even flinching at his punches. So he rips the Power Stone off of the gauntlet, and he hits her with that, which is the only thing that really knocks her back. Tony finds Doctor Strange, and he says, "Hey, is this the one way that you saw that we win?" And Doctor Strange said, "Well, I can't tell you, because if I told you, it wouldn't happen." So then Tony goes back and starts fighting Thanos again, and Thanos finally gets the gauntlet and puts it on. Iron Man's trying to take it off of him, but he doesn't. He fails, and Thanos knocks him back, and then Thanos says, "I am inevitable." He has the gauntlet, and he snaps his finger, but nothing happens. And as Thanos twists the gauntlet around, he sees that all the gems have been removed, and so it switches back to Iron Man, and shows that he has them all. And then he says, "I'm Iron Man." And then he snaps his fingers. Once Tony does that, all of Thanos' army starts to fade to dust, just like the Avengers faded to dust in the first Infinity War. And it was kind of great to see everybody, all the bad guys, turn to dust. And at the end, Thanos sits down. It looks like he ponders for just a moment about how he lost everything, and then he fades to dust. Dun, dun, dun. So the battle was over, and the heroes had won, but the damage had been done. When Tony used the Infinity Gems to wipe out Thanos' army, the resulting energy surge killed Tony, and it was very sad. All the heroes kind of gathered around him and told him it was okay. Pepper told him it was okay, that he could rest now, and very, very sad, very sad. So they had a funeral for him, and everybody showed up, all the families and all the hero connections. Basically, it was the culmination of the 10 years of all the people he had met, whose lives he touched. Nick Fury was there, and all the other characters. And then he switched to Captain America. He's got all the stones. He's going to go back in time, and he's going to take them and return them, just like Bruce promised the Ancient One he would do. And he took Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. So I couldn't figure out at the time why he was taking that, but then I realized, he's taking it back to Thor. So he did all that, and they were waiting for him to come back, and 5 seconds was passing, but then he never appeared. And then they kind of look over, and they see this old man sitting on a bench. And Bucky and Sam go over to him, and actually Sam does. Bucky says, "Go ahead, Sam." And Sam goes over and sees this really old Steve Rogers sitting on a bench, and he was saying, "Well, I got my happily ever after." And Captain America gave Sam the shield and said, "This is yours." So more or less. So now basically passing the mantle on to Falcon to be the new Captain America, which is comic book accurate. So yeah, I guess that will do. But I think Captain America got the best part of that ending there. So he tells Falcon that he met a girl, and you could see that he has a wedding ring, and Falcon's like, "Well, you want to tell me about that?" And he says, "Nope, I don't think I do." And then it kind of switches back to the past, where you can see Steve and Peggy Carter dancing, and then it fades out, and that's the end of Endgame. Bum bum bum. Also at the end, Thor decides he wants to join the Guardians of the Galaxy, or the Asgardians of the Galaxy, as it were, which is kind of funny. And they have this little argument about who's going to be in charge, Thor or Star-Lord, and it's kind of a funny scene. And also, Star-Lord's looking for Gamora. He's running like a search program for her because she kind of took off. So it'd be pretty interesting to see if Thor is going to be in Guardians 3. I'm not sure, but hey, something worth looking forward to. So, on all, I thought Avengers Endgame was good. It certainly bookended the first Iron Man movie in the fact that it accumulated 10 years and said, this is a good ending spot for all the films. It had a lot of callbacks from each of the films. If you watch the films, you can see the different things that happened in this movie that connected to those particular films. A couple of things I was curious about is Vision. I don't know what they did with his body. He didn't make a comeback in this movie, so they didn't mention anything about him. But, I mean, I guess he's dead somewhere or he's in a box. I don't know what they did with him. The time travel inconsistencies are kind of weird. Like, you killed Thanos, and the past Thanos came into the future, he died, and therefore he wouldn't have been around to do so. What's up with the paradoxes? But I don't think they wanted to get into that. So, same with Nebula. Nebula killed her past self, so she should die. I don't know. What's O'Brien say?
I hate temporal mechanics.
Yeah, anyway. I think some of the characters had some great arcs, and it completed their arcs really well. Obviously, Black Widow died, so her arc ended on a bad note. Hulk, he was able to rectify the war between his two warring parts and become one, so that was a good thing. Hawkeye was reunited with his family, so yay for him. Thor, I don't know. Again, I really hate what they did to Thor. I think they really crippled his character, making him fat and slovenly, and I don't know. I guess that's the way they wanted to go with him. I guess, we could possibly see him again in Guardians. I think that would be neat if he pops up there. But anyway, Iron Man, he ended out his arc very well, as much as he started at the end of the beginning, I am Iron Man, and the end of this one, I am Iron Man. So that was some consistency, full circle going around. But all in all, everything being said, my favorite character in this movie would have to be Captain America. He came out, and they didn't do much with him in Infinity War because obviously they were saving him for this. He did that heroic stand at the end against Thanos. He picked up Thor's hammer. He waylaid him a little bit, bam, 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 and basically stood against all odds, going against Thanos toe to toe by himself until, all the heroes arrived. And in the end, he stayed in the past with Peggy, and he got his happily ever after. So, yeah, I think they really did a great job completing the Captain America arc, and I'm very happy for that character. And I know we're wrapping up, but I also wanted to mention that one of the things I kind of didn't like about the movie, other than what they did to Thor and Hulk, because they kind of nerfed Hulk too, was how they changed Thanos. In Infinity War, Thanos was kind of noble, and he had this quest, and he had good reasons what he did for what he was doing. But in Endgame, they made him more of the villain, an actual villain, where you just actually wanted him to die, and it wasn't too bad when he did die. And I really hate that they did that to him because, I've never thought that Thanos was a villain per se. Yeah, I know he did horrible things, but, history is filled with people who do horrible things, and he had his reasons, but, I really didn't like how they turned him out. But, in the end, based on what he'd become, I was glad that he was defeated the way he was. But anyway, I just thought it was a shame. So, I guess that's about it for the Avengers Endgame review. Hope you enjoyed it, and I still recommend going to see it, even though it's going to take you 3 hours out of your day. It is really worth the tears and the time. Marvel's spent 10 years coming to this moment, and I don't think you'll be disappointed when you see it. Well, guys, have a great night, and I'll see you later.